Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we will be talking about the 13 keys in the 2024 presidential race. If you've never heard of the 13 keys, they're a very interesting concept. It was, discovered and, of course, publicized by a historian, a professor named Allan Lichtman. He's a professor, I don't know, somewhere near Washington, D.C. He works at some university. And he developed, looking back at elections since 1860, he developed 13 keys, true or false keys, that he believed, despite all the numbers, despite everything, these 13 keys would determine the presidential election winner. And, this would have been true, according to him, when he created these 13 keys. This would have been true, if, they had been around, since every election, I think, since 1860. I think that was, the basis of using all of those past election results. So he has predicted every single, election correctly except 2000. Now, I don't know, it used to be like a popular vote predictor, and then he said it was Electoral College, so I don't even know what's going on with that, and then I think, whatever. Because then I think after this he said that it predicted the Electoral College, but then he said Trump would win. And that was, of course, his most famous call. He was really the only forecaster, if you will, even though he's not really a forecaster, to say that Trump was going to win. And, of course, he wasn't as notable at that time. He wasn't as famous. But after that really stunning prediction that he got correct, that is when he gained, some sort of fame, because that really, did take some serious insight, to think that Trump would win, of course, the huge upset in the 2016 election. So with this 13 Keys tracker, there's a website where you can make your own 13 keys, whatever it may be. So, again, this is a really interesting concept, because it throws out, most importantly, it throws out all of the numbers. The 13 keys says that from the start of the race, basically, some of them, like the economy and foreign policy keys, could change, but it basically says, from the beginning of the race, when each candidate is nominated, we already know who is going to win, and numbers like this don't matter. Using the 13 keys, it means that numbers like polls, individual state polls, favorability polls, generic ballot polls, none of that matters. We talk about shifts. Kamala may be gaining 5 points here or there, or Trump may be gaining a point or two in some of these battleground states, but the 13 keys says that none of that matters. It all comes down to these 13 keys. So if you don't know, they are set up as true or false questions. So for example, in the first key, midterm gains, this is asking for the incumbent party. For the incumbent party. It doesn't have to be an incumbent president, of course, running, because, of course, in a case like this, we don't have an incumbent running for re-election. But, for example, again, midterm gains for the Democratic Party, because they are the incumbent party. Did they have midterm gains? Is that true or false? Now, we also have different characterizations, but it really doesn't matter in the end, because all that matters is who wins more trues. That's not right. It's who wins more, because any time that a key is true, that's a point for the Democrats. Anytime a key is false, that is a point for Republicans. So it's all centered around the incumbent president. And now, before I do get too in depth, I do want to say that I would not put too much trust in these 13 keys. I don't, as much as other people. For example, Allan Lichtman, using these 13 keys, had Joe Biden winning in 2024. That's outrageous. He was going to get crushed by Trump. He literally dropped out because he was going to lose. On the other hand, on an even worse hand, he, in his official prediction using these 13 keys, he has Biden actually having one more key than Kamala Harris, of course, that being the incumbency key. So he believed that Harris would do worse than Joe Biden, and he still does today. So obviously it is flawed. He says it comes down to these 13 things, but in the end, other stuff does matter. What about age? Age goes beyond just, having an uncharismatic incumbent. It goes way beyond that. If people don't think that the candidate is competent enough to serve another 4 years, then that would be its own key. So obviously, I believe that 13 keys is flawed. It is flawed in some instances, but it does appear that it is very accurate when it comes to predicting elections the vast majority of the time. So let's go through these 13 keys. We can fill them in ourselves and see what the outcome of the election will be. So we'll start with the first key, of course, midterm gains. So this, of course, as I said before, is it true that the Democratic Party, the incumbent party, had midterm gains in 2022? Now they way overperformed, and that would of course prompt a lot of people to say that that they did. But this one is very complicated, that Democrats did make gains, because they made one gain in the Senate. They gained a Senate seat, but they lost a good amount of House seats. In the end, they lost about what? I think they lost like 13, 14, or 15 House seats, and in the end, that really, yes, there are more House of Representatives members than there are senators, but still, it does heavily outweigh, losing 13 seats. That does outweigh the Democrats gaining one seat in the Senate. So, unfortunately for Kamala Harris, because she does come so close to winning this key, that would be a key that does lean towards the Republicans. So Donald Trump is starting with a win in the first key. Now we have a second key. No primary contest. Again, this is asking, was there a primary contest for the incumbent party? That being, of course, Kamala Harris. It's strange how they phrase all these questions, because it's all centered around the incumbent party. Now this is another interesting one, because, really not complicated, but interesting in another way, because, of course, we had switched candidates. So with Joe Biden, no, there wasn't a serious primary challenge. You did have Marianne Williamson, Dean Phillips, but they didn't really come close to winning. And, when Harris became the nominee, she had even less competition. So, obviously, this one is going to be certainly true for the incumbent party, Kamala Harris. And now you see it is tied. And, again, it's weird because it doesn't matter if Donald Trump had a primary contest. So, it's really strange. Interesting how they phrase these types of questions. The third key is the incumbent seeking re-election. That, of course, of course it's false, right? We don't have Joe Biden seeking re-election, but you basically have a stand-in for the incumbent president, of course. That is the vice president, the second in line. So while this, of course, is going to be false, it's not certainly false, right? It's not entirely false, because you still have someone who really represents the incumbent president running. So I would put that as likely false. So in our fourth key, and you can see here what Allan Lichtman says. For example, what he says certainly true. For primary contest, certainly false. He says certainly false for the midterm gains, and then he says certainly false for the incumbency key. And then we have the fourth key, no third party. Now this one is one of the serious flaws, because it's asking, is it true or false that there is a third-party candidate in the race who is polling at more than 5%? That was true with RFK Jr. However, it is now false with, we've got Jill Stein and Cornel West, Chase Oliver, but none of them are polling near 5%. Now, again, here is one of the major flaws, because, if you say that this is false, then you are giving it, of course, to Donald Trump, which is what I'm going to do, because it is false. But why is a no third party just automatically favoring a certain candidate? It depends on the candidate. This is simply asking, is there a third party candidate polling above 5%? And for some reason, the keys are assuming that it is going to benefit Donald Trump. Of course, he gets a point there. So, why is that the case? What if Jill Stein was ahead? What if Jill Stein had 5% or more in the polls? She is incredibly left-leaning. Of course, she would take away votes from Kamala Harris. So, if Jill Stein was above 5%, then we would characterize that as a true key. So how does that make sense? You're giving Kamala Harris a point there, when Jill Stein is, of course, taking so many more votes away from Harris than Trump. This one makes zero sense to me. I don't know why it is structured like this. But, of course, if we're following the keys, we'll see. I don't know. I don't get it. but that key would go to Donald Trump, certainly. And then we have key 5, a strong short-term economy. Now, this is another, not too complicated one, but in the beginning of the Biden term, of course, the economy was very weak when it came to inflation and all that, and that has really stuck by this. I don't know what it says in the polls exactly, but Republicans have sort of plagued the entire Biden administration with this weak economy with high inflation just in those, first 2 years of the Biden administration. However, still, we don't look to that. We look to the actual short-term economy, and it is strong right now, and the recession has been escaped. I would put this as certainly true for Joe Biden. Then we have key 6, strong long-term economy. Of course, this is hard to tell, but again, there is no recession, and Joe Biden has added hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs. Of course, that's going to help in the Rust Belt. He has been a, really pro-jobs president. When you just look at the numbers, of course, this is, coming from an unbiased point of view. But I mean, he is, added really hundreds of thousands of jobs after COVID, that is. So there is no reason in my mind to not put this as certainly true. Then we have key 7, major policy change. So this would be, is it true that the Biden administration has, developed major policy changes since the Trump administration? Now, this one is very difficult to grasp, and it really depends on how you look at the United States. If you are a staunch independent who is unfriendly towards both political parties, you'd probably say that Republicans and Democrats, especially people like Biden and Trump, are really the same on policy. They're only extremely different when it comes to character. Or if you are a conservative, or if you are a liberal, then you would probably, see, at least in a greater sense, the policy differences between the two candidates. So overall, Allan Lichtman does say that this is certainly true. I would as well. This is more going with a, if a Democrat succeeds a Democrat, was their policy change then? But I would say that this is true, probably likely true, and I would give that to Kamala Harris, that key. Key number 8, no social unrest. I mean, yeah, you've got protests over Gaza, but it's nothing compared to the social unrest in the 2020 election, where you had mass protests about, the police brutality, Black Lives Matter, as well as, of course, the backlash against the COVID-19 lockdowns and all of that. I mean, that was just a stunning time. But of course, this key is going to go to the Democrats because it's nothing near what COVID was like. It's nothing near what, the social unrest nearing the Civil War or anything, or during the Great Depression, right? Or the Civil Rights Movement. Nothing, not even comparable. So, as it stands, 5 true keys, 3 false keys. So Kamala Harris does have the lead. Key number 9, no scandal. No, this is asking, was there a scandal on the incumbent party side? Absolutely not. There has been no scandals that have been plaguing the Kamala Harris campaign. Key number 10, no foreign military failure. That's a slash. No foreign/military failure. So is this true, or is it not? This one is, again, a lot of these are opinion. Of course, I'm creating this key. People create their own keys because you can disagree with Allan Lichtman on how these keys fall. So he says that it is not true, that it is false, that there have been no failures. And of course, your mind immediately points to the withdrawal of Afghanistan. Now, I don't think that the American people are as much as against the withdrawal, in opposition to the, yes, it was disastrous as a withdrawal, but ultimately I do think that Americans really overall had a positive view of it because we were finally getting out of Afghanistan. Now, the mainstream media didn't portray it that way at all. Politicians aren't going to portray it that way. But honestly, that, yes, it was a failure, but it's not something that has plagued the Biden administration because it was something that Americans did want sooner or later, how we got out. Of course, that was a disaster. But, again, Americans did want it. Now, you do have Gaza So many people are outraged over that, with the U.S. funding Gaza. You've got Ukraine. In poll after poll, Americans are turning away, from supporting Ukraine just because of how long that has been going on. So overall, yes, this is false. I would agree with Professor Lichtman that it is likely false. Key number 11, major foreign military success. I'm going to disagree with Professor Lichtman. He says that it is true that the U.S. has had, or that the incumbent party, I should say, has had a major foreign military success. But again, it goes back to the points that I brought up. Afghanistan, overall, that was an accomplishment. That was good. But you also have Gaza, young voters really turning away from Democrats because of that issue. And you've got Ukraine. Again, the Ukraine war is becoming more and more unpopular by the day. Americans are just forgetting about it, honestly. And that has absolutely not been a success. I don't know what success he is talking about, but in my mind, Americans do not view the recent foreign policy of the Biden administration as a success. I would put that as likely false. So that's my first major disagreement with Professor Lichtman. Then we have key 12, charismatic incumbent. So this is actually the incumbent. What this is just outdated, but it is talking about the incumbent party nominee. So this is talking about Kamala Harris, and so he describes it, not just a likable, but this is like a generational, remembered candidate generations later. Someone like a JFK, remembered for whatever, how they speak, their honesty, just their character. They are really, really liked during the campaign, and they get people on their side because of their charisma. Again, that is JFK figures. That's RFK figures. And there haven't been very many. That's FDR, right? That's Ronald Reagan. People like that. So Kamala Harris, yes, she is likable, and she now has a net favorability. But does she have that sort of generational legend status for decades to come? No, she does not. That is certainly false. Then we have the last key, key 13, uncharismatic challengers. That, true or false, is Donald Trump charismatic? No, he is actually extremely hated. His favorability ratings are in the gutter. They are absolutely tanking. That is certainly true. So that is a positive for Kamala Harris. So in the end, in the 13 keys, wow. So using the 13 keys, Kamala Harris wins 7, Donald Trump wins 6. So apparently, I didn't even know this, but it's not just you have to win a majority. That's what it is. 7 is a majority. But anyway, if you look here, you have to win 8. You have to win 8 keys if you're the incumbent party to win. Kamala Harris wins if she wins 8 keys. 8 of the 13. But it's a lower bar for Donald Trump, for the challenging party. That's just how it's set up. It is a lower bar. So if 6 or more of the keys are false, then the challenger, Donald Trump, wins. So by my estimation, using the 13 keys, Donald Trump would win the presidency in 2024. He wins the minimum that he does, 6 to Kamala Harris's 7. But again, so many are debatable. It is so very hard to tell. And of course, in my prediction, I do have Kamala Harris winning. So this would directly go against my prediction. I don't have my forecast pulled up, but yeah, I do have Kamala Harris winning. Over 270. She wins all the Rust Belt states, plus Nevada, plus North Carolina. She loses Georgia and Arizona for the swing states. But again, these 13 keys say the opposite of what I believe my election prediction will be. Now, if we're talking about Professor Lichtman's prediction, again, we differ on the major foreign military success. I say that is false. Professor Lichtman says that it is true. So by his metric, Kamala Harris would win the presidency with 8-5. However, again, I disagree with that. So very interesting situation here with the 13 keys, it's an odd way to predict elections, not looking at numbers at all. But hey, by my prediction using the 13 keys, Donald Trump would win. So thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe down below. We're trying to get to 20,000 subscribers before Election Day. So if you could help me out with getting there, that would be extremely helpful. Again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.